And we are live as Carl's playing with Angel. How you doing? All right, tonight we've got a show of a couple of items that have happened this week. First of all, the title, we start off with Honk Honk. We're going to be talking about Canada. And I got to get rid of my echo.
Got it. My bad.
I had it on mine as well, so it's all good. Yeah, professionalism at its peak. All right, good. But yeah, we're here. So Hong Kong is a thing. Canada is getting off the head. Has anyone seen the convoys forming in Belgium, in Holland? They're calling for convoys in Australia and New Zealand as well. I've heard rumors about United Kingdom, but I'm not sure. And I've also heard things that there's one forming to go from California to Washington, D.C. And that would be an interesting to follow. If things go as planned, then this is a worldwide peaceful uprising. Because when the police in Canada tried to take the fuel from the truckers, and they had snipers and they had SWAT teams and they were there to make sure that somebody was going to get taken down, everyone was peaceful. 2 people were arrested for not showing identification, and it was a relatively uneventful situation that showed how the cops can be blatantly abusive, but yet they got the gas, they walked away, and everything will continue fine without any violence whatsoever, because they are there only to protest for their rights. News has been saying the entire city's closed down. There have been callers and people in Ottawa that say that that's false. They only shut down the area around the capital. They are protesting the lawmakers. That is what they want the laws to change. And in 2 or 3 provinces in Canada, I believe they have changed the laws. And I believe today Biden, as well as some other Democrats, were leaning on easing the mandates, the mask mandates, and everything else. So it seems things are changing. Your thoughts, folks?
Well, I saw Canadian police today read a letter on Telegram saying this is not what we signed up for and this is not what I want to do. And he's encouraging other fellow police officers and Royal Mounted police officers to follow suit and do the right thing, do what their job is there for. He reminded them that their job is to protect the public, not the politicians.
Yep.
And it's going out like wildfire on Telegram.
Yeah, the protector of, or Trudeau's, the guy who's in charge of protecting Trudeau.
Oh, his security, yeah.
Yeah, head of security was either, I think he was forced to resign or he was fired. And,
I read that he quit.
I
don't know.
Not sure, but I was listening to his speech, and he said this isn't what I signed up for. And then he went into, he got really emotional several times, and then went into his oath and says, I'm here to support the Constitution, and I don't want to support the man that's breaking those constitutional laws. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
They're finally standing up for their actual duties, because, for example, they tried to confront people, say, how long are you going to do this? And they said, as long as we need to get our rights back. And you guys can join us. And the cop said, no, I can't. And everybody in the entire restaurant said, yes, you can. And they have an obligation, a duty. They can't just say, oh, I was doing my job, my boss told me to do this. That's not going to be a justification. We had the Nuremberg Code coming out this, God, I got the video up right now. It's what do you call this? The grand jury trial begins for opening up the trial of crimes against humanity that will be going on. So it was about an hour and a half. That was one. There are 2.
Which country? Because I know
Germany.
I know
Germany.
Oh,
it was a video. It was a video that I sent you guys.
Yeah. And then Carrie and I, we last week we went on the bridge of 494, heading to the airport in the Mall of America with a group, Mask Off Minnesota. Is that it? And then we went ahead and we're out there with peaceful. It's not really protesting, just awareness. And we were getting the trucker. Every truck that went by gave us the honk, and every like 50% of the cars were cheering us on, stopping. And,
I mean, a few people give it the bird,
but for the most part, there was more support.
I was surprised, especially being here in Minnesota, because this is, or even near Minneapolis, because it's so, I want to say leftist here. That there was as much support as we were getting. I think a lot more people are awake than what they're doing too.
But the one thing that throws me off is predictive programming. You have the Illuminati card that reflects truckers. Now, it's not very clear. It's vague. There's a lot of cards in that deck, so you can construe anything. And then, of course, the potential Simpsons projection of if it's correct or not.
They were splicing some of that together.
Right, some of it could be spliced. But all in all, but then there's something to be said for Project Looking Glass. Probable timelines. Can they predict past these, 2012, however it goes? But the public reaction to what's going on, was it predicted, or are we overexceeding what they expected? Because to me,
it's also problem, reaction, solution. Why? Because it's almost inevitable. The only ones that can react and stand up are the ones who have the biggest impact. People have been making protests and everything else. It's meaningless. But when the trucks shut everything down and you no longer have shipping, you can't get into the Capitol, and people can't move around, everybody sees it. It changes things. Okay, and so it's one of those inevitable. And now we've got the farmers that are joining it, and then you got the cowboys that are joining it. I mean, once you've got that big movement started, then all the rest of them can actually combine, and it becomes this catalytic event. It just transforms the entire situation just
and
from the massive visibility of it.
The media can't ignore it anymore. They can't ignore it.
Because the media is not in charge. Nobody's watching the media. Nobody's watching the media. Everybody's seeing it in all their own.
Oh, CNN is tanking.
They've always been tanking.
Oh, they're tanking at an alarming rate now.
Little Castro?
Yeah, my wife has made some profound deductions along.
I don't know. That's a theory.
Well, she also feels
it was Tucker Carlson actually had a piece on it last week.
What?
Showing
the
clips.
Son? Oh,
No,
she had an
exactly.
affair. She had an affair with Castro.
Oh yeah, the mother did. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's evidence pointing to that he's.
And then we have Mayor Fry here, who we question.
But what I was saying is, I was looking at our mayor here, and he is just as bad. And I now this is a theory, but if you put all of their pictures together, and I study faces, he looks an awful lot like Trudeau. Yeah, and a lot of times it's their bloodlines are connected. They don't tell people.
And Minnesota connects to Canada,
stuff,
to give a pathway.
He looks an awful lot like. I mean, they both.
Oh, they've done some memes where they put half of Castro's face up with half of Trudeau's face. And
look him up and look at his face and compare him to Trudeau and compare him to Castro. Like,
it's not a doubt. I mean, all the historical documents have already been released on the internet. So we follow. We know who Trudeau's mother is, and her connection with Castro, and it's not hard putting two pieces together.
Yeah.
And then there's something else to throw in it. I don't think people are taking consideration. Our highway system, especially the ones that are tolled, these are foreign entities, are owned by foreign companies. In fact, the Minnesota Bridge was blown up. I was 8 minutes across. I came home. She was in tears, surprised that I made it, and I was on my motorcycle. And then I saw footage of explosions from underneath the bridge, which got deleted. So I know that that was a controlled demolition. It was not, because when I went across in the morning, I saw them drilling. They had holes everywhere and
There's a
heavy
lot of
equipment.
yeah.
Just odd circumstances. And then it happened just a little bit after 5. And most bridge makers would tell you that is not how a bridge would go. You wouldn't have a complete collapse. It would just
Yeah.
boom or whatever, totally blow up like that. Mm-mm. And then all this money came in.
Yeah.
And I bring this up because 35W leads to Canada. So all this, there's a co-connection
I will
somewhere, and
tell
I
you
haven't
guys,
pieced it
Oh,
together.
Minnesota.
they're trying to keep the truckers from getting to Canada and helping them out.
Yep, they are. And I will tell you, this state, and mark my words, will be found to be one of the most corrupt when all of this comes out. There's so much corruption going on here in Minnesota that we just had BLM marching in front of our house today. I mean, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, yep, down the street.
That's scary.
Down the street, yeah. And so, I mean, but I think that, you know, there's so much shady stuff going on. I think
Most
there's a lot more.
most of them are young people who believe that they're doing the right thing, and I get it. But when these people are not
I wish
doing
they were
their
that
history,
enthusiastic about taking out the cabal.
yeah.
I mean, deep state, you know, they're not awake to what's really going on.
Well,
they have no idea.
There's a theory out there that a lot of these Antifa and some of the BLM are these kids that we've seen on milk cartons over the last 15 years.
Very possible. Who knows?
Missing
MK
children
Ultra.
who've been MK Ultra and then turned loose on the public because a large population, a large percentage of them don't even have parents, don't have jobs.
No.
You know, it's like land of the lost out there. And these kids, this is why they believe in it, because they're all MK Ultra. And then add to that the influences they put on our teenagers at 14 when they all become rebellious.
Well, right. And the institutions are all about, you know, I mean, they start these kids in
Yeah.
You know, right from kindergarten, they're controlling.
And they're responding to media drilled events, because
it's coming at them from all angles.
Right. And the reason why I say the drilled events is because these are contrived events, starting from Trayvon Martin. His father was a Freemason, and he participated in a drill that we don't know if this really happened or not. We just taken the word for it. And then that's how BLM started, is from a letter wrote from the mother regarding, you know, that situation. That's where that came from. And then it come to find out the women in this organization that started it really have a disdain for the straight black man.
Yes.
Because they put them on the front line. They want them gone because they don't want the family unity. You know, so
well, they turn everything upside down.
Right. You know, and we know where this all stems from. I mean, so. And then this goes into the subject matter that I would like to go into. You know, I come from Chicago. I was pretty much raised as the only white kid in my school. I have a black sister. I have a black son. I mean, I went into doorways that most people could never have gone through. And I've seen things and had experiences. I mean, I only bring this up because, you know, my heart's in it. And the one thing that I always, you know, some of my friends, we get when the intensity came about, I keep bringing up to them, what do you believe what happens to you when you die? You know, where are you going? And of course, some are Christian and they have their beliefs. Some are, you know, whatever religion they have. Despite all of that, ultimately, you're either going to live again or you're going to some beautiful place and you're done. You know, but it derives to ask the question, okay, you come in with 4 arms, 4 legs, you're good. And then there's a guy that comes in that's already crippled or has diseases or whatever. You know, who do you blame? Do you blame the creator for putting you in that situation because God works in mysterious ways, whatever the excuse is? Or, you know, or is it possible that you did live other lifetimes and these are, you know, situations that you have to, you know, fix?
Why not think of it in terms as lessons to be learned? And maybe the particular lesson that needs to be learned that way.
Well, the reason I don't put it that way is because we come from source, which is
Right.
all one. We don't have to learn anything. We have to remember.
Well,
Remember.
it's what you're failing to realize is that it's about perspective.
Right.
All right. The reason God broke his soul up and created everyone and everything was so he would have different perspectives. So when someone is born with no arms and no legs, his life is very important, no matter how long or short it is, because he has a perspective that no one else does.
Yes, many lenses.
But
So-
some people come in pretty bitter with the cards they've been dealt.
Yeah,
And
that's a lesson to learn.
It's still a lesson. It's still a perspective.
Everything's a lesson. This
Well,
is
hold on a
Schoolhouse
second.
Earth.
Hold
Right.
on, Todd.
Expansion.
Hold on, Todd. On that, I got to say, what we believe to be something that would be horrible, we wouldn't be able to live through. I had a cousin of mine who had a car accident when he was 16. He rolled it 4 times. He ended up being paraplegic from the waist down. His mom thought his life was over, and she was depressed for years. She couldn't ever really deal with it. He, however, had to deal with it. It was his life, and he just found a way to get through it. He skied done more than I did. He has his own car, which he adjusted to his own needs and that sort of thing. And so it's just you adapt to it. And there was a study that was recently put in that mentioned that people that are quadriplegics or people that are in wheelchairs and that sort of thing usually have a better perspective on life than people that actually win the lottery. And this is funny because what they're realizing is that it's not the money that makes you happy. It's what's inside of you that makes you happy. It's how you look at life that will make you happy. Not the things that you have or the things that you do and that sort of thing. It's just
100%.
Yeah, our son has severe, or when he was younger, vertigo hit him really hard, and we could not do anything about it. We went everywhere trying to this resolve, and no one could give us any help. Teachers were into him. He had a hard time conveying his issue. I mean, he went through hell, and that caused a lot of depression for both Carrie and I. And so consequently,
I'm reading that.
so
I'm just reading.
Well, but that's the thing is these challenges that we're giving in life, they set us on adventures.
They're catalysts.
Now,
And catalysts make you grow. And that's the only way you grow is through catalysts. So
right. Without pain, there's no lasting effect. I mean, if I just give you something, it has no value outside of whatever value you deem that I have. Now, but if you scale a mountaintop, and discover it at the top of the mountain, then it has a lot more value. But you had to pay with pain, suffering, and everything to give it that value.
right. What I was going to lead to the fact that I'd been unknowingly diminishing his power when he's saying, "Dad, it's okay. I know how to deal with this. I'm good."
yeah, it's
And I have to learn to accept that and be good with it because he's good with it.
It's like you have a lens of distortion, and he's got a lens of distortion, and I have a lens of, and so when we come together as source eventually again, you've got billions of lenses that you're putting together, and you're seeing everything from every angle. And even though it might be distorted, when it comes together, it's going to make sense. If that makes sense, that's how I look at it.
Absolutely.
Party pants over here.
She's right on the money. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is, it's looking at what they say, the 40,000 foot view. You're getting to see all the different perspectives. And, when people tap into the Akashic records or their, what do you call it when you're, I forgot the name of it, when you're looking at, closing your eyes or seeing an image in your mind from far away that you're describing.
Visual dreaming.
Oh, like
No.
I can't think of it.
Not astral projecting, but
Right. Anyway, so when they're doing that, what they're doing is they're accessing, a vibration of someone who has seen it or is seeing it. So they're tapping into that frequency that they're able to see.
Right.
And
We're all one. We're all one. So we're all one. You're just seeing it through your eyes as that person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But you have to step out of your ego and your place of, you have to go beyond your character, everything, in order to even access that. You have to really know what you're doing.
No, it's just about accepting the information. You're trained in, I need to remember the word. Anyway, somebody help me out here. Anyway, you were trained from birth to ignore all of your senses. They tell you it's an imagination, it's fake, when everything that you see and experience through your life is based on reality. But reality that you see does not reflect the reality that everybody else sees.
Right.
So some of us have the ability, or we're more actively visualizing and seeing these other dimensions or other time. These other dimensions have different times in them. When you have access to these different dimensions, you can gain memories from complete different timelines.
And to add to that too is we always say see, when actually we only see 1% of the spectrum of light. Really, everything that we do, like in dreams, you come out of a dream, you try and put it together what you saw, but really it's the emotional content of what you feel that really takes hold of you, because that's the part that is the most, because that's really the tone of the dream is what really is impacting upon you. Your mind is just trying to put it all together, and it comes up with these wacky stories that have nothing, because you're everybody in the dream.
See, that's part of the misinformation. That's part of the misinformation. See, when you dream, there are two things that happen. You're either actually visiting a dimension or realm where this is actually taking place and you're participating in it, or the spiritual realm is helping guide you or send you a message, basically. All right. So when you have these really, and it's hard to discern which is which. There are dreams where you can see yourself, but it's not your body, and you're participating in events that you normally wouldn't participate in, or it's bizarre in one way. Physics normally don't apply. Sometimes you can feel pain or pressure, not really pain, but pressure. You can feel hot or cold, but it's an odd sensation. You're actually experiencing a different version of you in a different dimension,
and that's where the ESPA comes in.
The SPA.
It's ESP, the ESP, because the deja vu actually is what I was trying to get into. Because many times I would have dreams of things that would actually happen later on, and it's everybody chalks it up to deja vu, but what it is that you're accessing those different timelines and finding out, probabilities. Why? Because in the quantum multiverse, there are so many different probabilities. There are endless possibilities, but the probabilities go closing down closer to what you actually. You have to break the wave down every time that you concentrate on it, and so every decision that you make is breaking down the quantum probabilities into that particular reality that you chose to walk down that particular time.
Well, see, it's not that complicated. I mean, you just got to remember, everything is frequency based. So the dimension that we're all experiencing right now is resonating at one specific frequency. When you go to bed and you close your eyes, your consciousness has the ability to visit any frequency, dimensional frequency it wants to. All right. And you get to experience that. If it's close, if it's long and drawn out, and you wake up at the tail end of, while you're still in this other dimension, when your soul comes back, it's still carrying that resonant frequency. It allows you to download those memories. If you visit a different dimension when you first go to bed, and your soul returns to your body while you're still in deep REM, there's no download. So those memories aren't stored, not long term.
On Deja Vu, if I could add a little
Sure.
something to that, I was schooled a long time ago by someone who explained that Deja Vu is a signal that someone has messed with the timeline.
Oh, whoa.
Well, then this is Miss Deja Vu because
The
this is,
Matrix.
she keeps always telling me that she's had a deja vu experience. Then, of
Yeah,
course,
they told me that, or they explained that it shows that somebody's messing with the timeline, and whatever it is, apparently it affects that person who feels the deja vu.
Yeah, and we're constantly traversing timelines as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
A lot
Oh,
of
it's
the chart is
dimension.
telling you.
Yep.
Mhm.
In and out, in
Like,
and out.
you're in a waking dream right now. You're in a
Yes.
waking dream. We're all experiencing as source. You know, I'm Carrie. But I'm experiencing, you know, my life as source as Carrie right now. But I'm
But
also
you're not Carrie from 10 years ago.
right. And
Exactly.
and there's so many timelines that, I mean, you know, the probability of
Well,
endless. You know,
Right.
right. Well, the other thing on deja vu, it's when we throughout our day, months, weeks, I don't know when it happens, and it's always particular with individuals. So when you bounce from one dimension to another in your physical form, you know, or your conscious soul, when you bounce from one dimension to the other, a lot of these dimensions, you know, are their reflections of the prime dimension. So almost everything is identical. But the further you get away from that primary stream frequency, things start getting a little bit different.
Yep.
So when you bounce from the mainstream to the one to the right of it, it could be a half a second back, or 3 seconds back, or 10 minutes back, or 2 hours back, and you will run across something that you saw not once. You saw it once in the previous dimension, but now you get to see it a second time in the new dimension, i.e., deja vu.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we call it, you know, I was so fascinated with the Mandela effect, and I couldn't figure out why or what it was, you know, and we hear the nonsense about them playing with time. But you got to realize they're not playing with time. Time in this, from this planet, is consistent because
Everything
of the
happens at the same time.
Right, because of the toroidal field of the Earth. But the frequencies of these various Earths that run from this different timeline, you know, so you have your medium frequency that's coming through the main, we call it the median, the main one. It's where everything kind of lines up. But you have all these other versions going around you at the same time. And you have the reverse of everything going on at the same time. Remember, in a toroid field, the top part of the toroid field's rotating clockwise. The bottom half of the toroid field's rotating counterclockwise. Matter is shooting out from the center, going up, and then out down towards the bottom, coming out.
But throw CERN in there. Throw CERN in there because they're manipulating and going into antimatter, and that's because a lot of people attribute the Mandela effect to the these guys messing around with CERN.
Right. What they're trying to do is they're trying to pierce these other dimensions in a violent way. So to go from one dimension to the other, we do it all the time. It's just a mild calibration of your resonant frequency, and you're there.
Well, the reason I bring it up is you take someone like, okay, Mr. Rogers. He says, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, was what I remember. But now he's saying it's a beautiful day only in this neighborhood, fuck your neighborhood, and everybody else's neighborhood.
That's because the dimension or the frequency you were at when you first saw that, that's what happened. In this dimension, this is what he says.
Right.
It's not because of what they're doing in CERN. What they're doing in CERN is they're trying to corrupt or destabilize the primary toroid field, or
they want to bring something in.
You know, back in the ancient times, they call it, I believe, a Kendalali. Anyway, they're trying to destabilize our primary toroid field. okay, which ripples throughout all the dimensions, because every time they hit that whatever, when they're spinning that particle around and around and around and around, and then they clash it into another one, that sets off a massive vibration that interrupts the toward fields in all dimensions. That's why nuclear bombs are so devastating, is because when they detonate, they affect every dimension. Those shock waves and those, what they're doing is massively destructive.
Through the cosmic web too, and it affects everything in the cosmic web. So, yeah, I mean, we really shouldn't be playing with nukes at all. I don't know, they that's bad news.
They already shut down the silos out in Dakota. The ETs did. They shut them all down.
Oh yeah,
not just in Dakota, and the majority of them have been neutralized.
Right, but at the same time, we were told by Q and other military intelligence sources that there's no nukes. Don't worry about the nukes. What happened last month? They just dropped a damn nuke in the middle of the ocean. They called it an underwater volcano eruption.
Yeah,
it was a fucking nuke.
And here's the other thing to throw into the mix. The writer of Independence Day has this new movie, this Moonshot.
Moonfall?
Moonfall. Yeah, and that seems to be predictive programming to a potential new psyop that they want to do. They're going to dump the mass thing because that's not working. They're going to dump
Doesn't Elon Musk have a rocket that's been orbiting for a while and is now supposed to hit the moon?
Right.
In a couple of week or so.
Right. And see, what they want to do is say that our oxygen is depleted, and now these people wearing masks are now going to be wearing oxygen suits.
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Even
though I agree with you to some degree, really what they're going to start pushing is this AI agenda, because the AI that is out there, terrifying.
Well, that's what that movie is implying, that the moon is made of ET AI group.
They're really trying to push this AI agenda, and Musk is kind of the tip of the spear with that. I mean, he's really and to pretend like he's concerned. I mean, I've heard him say things that like, well, you're ushering it in, and you're trying to get everybody to accept it, and they're trying to give it human qualities, and they're trying,
Yeah, he's tweeting up all go truckers, and he's all the way.
And I will tell you, this AI has wiped out entire galaxies. So, I mean, this is something we need to be concerned about,
Well, I mean, but then the other thing you got to look at, the whole point of the Moonfall was you have a vindictive AI, and then you have a beneficial AI.
Mm-hmm.
Can you have one without the other? I mean, there is yin and yang for a reason. There are opposites to everything. And
I just saw a movie on Netflix where this astronaut goes into space with a female bot, and they made it seductive, and of course he's hanging the hell out of this robot all the way through. Then he wants this thing to become autonomous, wants it to be able to think for itself, and goes through all these rigors. It was really kind of creepy.
It kind of sounds like HAL from 2001.
Right. It's AI sympathizing. You take Terminator, trying to make AI the father figure, and they want to make AI sympathize. My wife was watching a video recently of these robots and answering questions.
So right. You were so right about the AI sympathizers. Look, this robot is real. It can mimic emotions. Don't you feel sorry for it?
Yeah, and
what's that?
Take care of us, and it loves you. And until it destroys your whole planet.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Google has opened up a church to their AI god. Okay, so inside Google, there is a church to an AI god.
Oh God, that's reminiscent of the old movie Omega Man.
Yeah, and so what? Yeah, exactly. And so what happens is that they're already building this and creating what we already know is going to happen, because Revelation told us about this a long time ago. Okay, it's just really bizarre whenever the pieces start to fall into place and you start to recognize it. Going, wow, why? Because we've got the mark coming up. We've got the social credit system. We got the, what is it, EKG, I think is or ESG or something that's going to be trying to be implemented here in the States, which is the same thing as the social credit score in China. Depending on, whether you like trees or not, whether you drank too much last week or how you spent your money will affect, what kind of credit rating you're going to get, or in the future, whether or not you can get a hamburger or not, or you can get on the train or not.
Yep.
So
we've got
also projected that too, and his
Yeah, I mean, this is
mad
Agenda
like hell.
21. It's Agenda 2130. Now they've just moved up the timeline. They're just fast tracking it now because it got thwarted for a bit, and people are starting to fight back. I noticed even there's a.
But how much are they going to fight back? It's like
with
this.
Don't want to seem. They seem to not want to stand up for some reason. Everybody's standing up
because they're comfortable. They're not going to stand up. The only reason people stand up is if they're hungry or threatened or something else. Their life is too comfortable for them to actually stand up for it, because hey, what's let them eat their cake. They got no bread to eat. Let them eat cake. Why? Because they think the cake's all, there's, if they don't have cake, they can eat, scrumpkins or buns or whatever, because there's so much available.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't realize that they're just being, what the Romans talked about, circus, bread and circus. If you give the people bread and circus, you can control it.
They're slaves. They're slaves that are comfortable.
And they still collect these guys at the Coliseum. People going to the sports games and this and that. They collect them at the Coliseum. They distract them. They fall. We've fallen for everything. And we're falling and falling.
Well, and we need more. That's the problem. We need more of a catalyst to get people uncomfortable enough to the point where they do stand up.
Well,
So
I think that's what's
guess what the last
happening
2.5 years have been.
I think that's what's happening now.
My point coming up is,
I think it's going to get worse. Sad.
They're standing up for their basic rights in Canada with the trucker movement. And of course, this is going to spread globally, which is going to be great. And I really hope they do shut down the Super Bowl and then they go to the border. Fuck DC. Who gives a shit about DC? It's a bunch of damn puppets over there anyway.
Right.
If you want to get the media involved and you want to really make an impact, stop the Super Bowl. You stop the Super Bowl, everybody goes, oh my God. Oh!
Yeah, there was a post on Telegram today about doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I will say, there is something to be said for starting small groups and people standing up. Nobody, I see people just sitting back waiting for everybody else to stand up
because of the little me.
And it's like, no, you have to stand up yourself. It starts with just a few people, and then groups gathering together and growing. And really, it needs to have a grassroots kind of beginning. I mean, even these convoys in Canada and Australia, that's how they started.
But see, we still have to educate the public because the public still buys into history and all the bullshit.
Well, on top of all of that, before you even start something, we got to have a freaking end game.
Yeah.
Where do we want to be in 10 years after we've erased the deep state and reorganized our society? What are we going to allow into our society, and what are we going to ban?
Because we don't see more isms.
No kidding. But I mean, right now, everybody's talking about Nasera, and everybody still wants to follow the same fucked up path that we're on right now. They just want the deep state out of it and stop sacrificing the children. And they want to maintain. They want to maintain the skeleton of the society that already exists, which is corrupt.
Because this Nassar Gassar thing, this is hopium, which is basically this people are just not getting off their knees and standing up.
Q was bringing attention to all of this and awareness, but then you've got all these people, and we were kind of following Charlie Ward, and when I'm looking at these guys, what I'm seeing, hey, it's under control. We got it under control.
Yeah, you don't have to do
anything.
Except for
they don't have it under control, and everybody's sitting back.
Right.
That in itself should be alarming.
Yeah, the
Well,
new system's going to take care of you. Don't worry. We got the years.
I
Okay,
think they're
yeah,
going to
Hold
do
on.
it like boiling
That's not what
frogs.
Q was about. That's not what Q was about.
No,
Was
No,
about
it
no,
was
no.
about information.
She was about getting people to wake
Yeah.
up and
if you
Exactly.
think, okay, but the problem comes in is if you think this is just about politics, you're wrong.
Exactly.
Okay, if you think this is just about your freedoms, you're
Absolutely.
wrong.
Well, right.
It's
If you
spiritual
think this
warfare.
is just about Earth, you're wrong.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, there are underground cities, underground tunnels, underground civilizations, different species. There are a massive amount of things going on behind the scenes. The American people and the people of the world that go around our day-to-day lives are not included in what's going on behind the scenes. There's a reason for it, and I don't agree with the reason. Because I promise you, we should be involved.
Right.
Yes, at the end of it, there will be a lot fewer of us if we got involved, but at least it would give everybody a chance to stand up. It would break the brainwashing of those who are too deep to break, and they may suicide themselves coming to this realization. But there's so much going on, with them saying, "Don't worry, sit back, we got this." That's because they don't want to tell us that they are killing millions and millions and millions and millions of people, children. They're killing children by the
Children.
millions
Yes.
that are in these underground facilities and
Right.
underground cities.
Yeah.
They're wiping out so much that we will never learn about it.
Well, what it is these
Well,
people,
we're only going to know of a percentage, and this is all going to go like boiling frogs. And eventually, we're going to reach a point where that band-aid's going to have to come off. That
Yes.
it just cannot stay on.
what the problem is you have people that have been in the current system have been taken care of. All my, yeah, I got to pay my taxes, I got to do this, but there's a grocery store down the street. Everything's taken care of for me. Now it's falling apart. Media's falling apart. Everything. Now they're looking for new saviors. Oh, Nassar. Oh, this Trump's going to come back and save us. Oh, somebody's going to save us. Oh, okay, I'm counting on that. So then when that doesn't work out, no one ever comes to self to say, I got to save me. I got to learn how to grow food. I got to.
Yeah, well, there are people out there that do that. But one thing we have to keep in mind is not everybody is at the same level of evolution.
Right.
There's people that, the Bible even tells us there are people, one will remain and one will be taken. We don't know how that works. Maybe the ones they take are meaning they take them from us or take us from each other. But
I will say there is off-world human trafficking going on too. They're not
right.
It's not just on the inside of this planet. They're taking people from this planet and
Yep.
trafficking.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
By the
But
millions.
there's going to come
Here-
a point where this division happens. There's going to be a grand split at some point, and it's usually when there's a near total revelation where everybody is getting on board.
There's going to be a tipping point.
Well, we also look into the fact that the solar flash is still a potentiality really soon.
That might not be in our reality too. We don't know.
It propaganda. Okay.
The Bible
What you got to remember. What
It's
you have to
fear.
remember. Don't look at us killing the millions of people in these underground cities. Look at the stars. Look at the skies. Don't look here. Don't follow the children that are disappearing. Don't follow the earthquakes.
Yeah, look
Don't
here, not
follow
there.
the massive human trafficking going on. Don't follow the money. It's aliens. It's solar flares. It's the Earth's wobbling. It's going to do its flip, and it's going to kill everybody on the planet.
It's all
That's
fear
why we
porn.
need our deep underground bases. So just keep looking up at the stars and don't pay attention to what's going on.
It's fear porn.
Well, no, I bring up the solar flash because there's a possibility that can happen. We've already had evidence of.
There's evidence of global flooding too, and you don't think they're going to reuse that nonsense as well? The Earth is going to go through a catastrophe, all right. But right now, the catastrophe is about our souls,
right,
not our bodies.
Right, but we can mitigate the reaction to that because it is the sun is a logos, so logos being a creator connected to, so we are part of that consciousness as one, and our ability to mitigate that is our consciousness.
Absolutely. These sort of things, if you focus on them and worry about them, you actually bring them on, because these disasters follow the human experiential cycle. If you're
Yeah.
if you are constantly in fear, this is why they want to keep us in fear. If we are constantly in fear and they keep weaving their spells to keep us in fear, then we'll bring it on ourselves.
Well, yeah, they use co-creative consciousness to do that. They've
Right.
been doing it for a long time. Yeah, and they use us. We're
Yes.
the magic.
Well, with delusion is what they keep working on, and that's what.
Solution they use you to create. They use us to co-create. They don't want us waking up to the fact that we do.
And there are some people that are just not going to wake up. I mean, the Q estimate was 5 to 6%, which was kind of synchronous to me, because between 5 and 6% is the population of the world of psychopaths. Psychopaths
Right, now,
run in about 5
the
to
amount of-
6%
I mean,
of the population.
The sad thing is you're going to have, oh, good Lord, less than 1% will ever know more than 40% of the truth.
Right.
Okay?
Well, he said 60-40.
All right. I'm saying 1% of the population will ever learn 40% of the truth. They're never going to tell us the 60%.
No, they're never going to tell us that the Anons have found out.
Right. I mean,
so there's a certain
but still, that's still in that 40%.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, with as much research as I've done and all the connecting the dots and all my critical thinking skills, I think I've pieced about 25 to 30%.
Right.
Okay.
I know what you're getting at.
So
all of it,
and I'm in that 1% that might learn 40, and I'm not at 40 yet.
None of us are.
Right. So, but it's taken years to get to this point. It
Yeah,
takes
but
years
people like us
of
also
research to get to this point.
People like us also have other information that helps us suss out quite a bit.
True.
And there are some people out there that when you try to give them this information, they don't want to hear it. So it's pretty much like that.
And some of us don't have the intellectual ability to express it, but we have an inner knowing of how it goes.
Yes.
We're in tune to, the whole dichotomy of how we got where we got without intellectually laying it out. Right. I can't intellectually lay it out, but I know.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, Carl, how it all co-connects. I mean, over here, you would think, no way this co-connects with this, but it all co-connects.
Everything
it all
connects.
Does. It all does. It's all pieces of this massive 3-dimensional puzzle. I mean, when I first started putting this puzzle together, I was trying to put it on a 2D plane. None of the pieces matched. But once I broke it up and put it into a 3-dimensional object and started bringing all these pieces together, then they connected. And all these pieces, they connect and they move. And it's the toward field. If you got to envision the toward field, then you put your pieces up there. It all connects, and you see the movement and the direction that everything is going.
And the biggest part is when you have 4D and 5D situations, like when we talk about ET stuff or dimensional subject matters or spiritual subject matter, you can't take that to a 3D thinking and try and prove it, because you have to already be able to think in terms of 4D and 5D thinking in order to be able to understand it.
But it's not. See, that's one of the things about, you don't necessarily have to understand how everything works together, because then you're basically like I did. I mean, I've wasted 40 plus odd years trying to figure all this shit out. And in the end, what you really find out is that it's about living it. It's about just being as good of a person as what you possibly can. You build your own goals. You create your own reality by setting up what you want to do later on. And you walk towards it. You try and build that and do as little harm as you can to others as if possible, and never covet money or want that above all, because the root of all evil is the love of money, and that's what's doing all this crap. Why?
You
because
can use money. It's just don't hold it above anything else.
Yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason why so many people are. Well, yeah, true. I mean, all of that. The most destructive efforts in this planet have been because people just want more freaking cash, and that is
concentrating. It's a little deeper than that. It's more of of service to self mentality as opposed to of service to others.
Service to STS and STO, yeah.
I can't keep money because this one here will have me stop on a highway to see because she saw a guy, sitting on the corner there with one leg or whatever in a wheelchair. She makes me pull aside. She runs and darts all the traffic, takes my $3 and gives it to him, comes back in the car, cries, "You don't know what he's been through." I'm like, we're just about to.
Yeah, he just got out of his limousine.
Yeah.
He's had a rough life, let me tell you. Changing in a limo's not easy.
Just getting past that curve.
That he's gonna have to clear.
I
up.
just don't have any more money because she keeps taking my wallet and pulling it out and giving it to everybody.
I get it, because I give
You
out
don't
money
really
too.
know. I don't really know. You don't
I'm
know.
like,
These,
dude is about to go get another bottle of
You
alcohol.
don't know that?
She's like, you don't know what he's going through.
He's getting a bottle of alcohol. It helps kill his pain, help ease his pain, and that's,
I'm
The
like,
important thing is she's feeling
get him
empathy.
a ham sandwich or something and give it to him. Now I feel better about that.
well, we've
there you go.
done.
Oh, I tried to do that one time, and he tried to follow me home.
Well, I mean, normally when I see somebody begging or whatever, it's either, get them a meal or, every now and then I'll stop at Walmart. I'll buy a backpack, put a pair of, a pack of socks in it, pack of underwear, pack of shirts, writing material, and some hygiene stuff, zip it up. And on my way out, I hand it to him. And now he's got all his toiletries and, fresh, clean socks. And,
But really, he's into one thing that a lot of people talk about, and that is love and all that. Really, it's unconditional love. Because at first, I used to not give because I used to feel like you're contributing to their problem or whatever, and you're disabled. You're looking down on their ability to create for themselves. I used to have a
And
totally
sometimes they're not happy in an institution. I mean, we've got a little guy here that every time he's got enough coming in on his Social
Right.
Security and Medicaid to keep him in a rest home, and he leaves. He can't smoke
Right.
on the grounds anywhere,
Right.
so he ends up in the lot.
perspective. My wife helped me change my perspective, and now I give unconditionally. If I give, it's done. There are people out here I've given money to, and they come back at me, and I'm okay with it. It's like, I'm not going to hold that against them.
Right.
Did this for you now, I expect you to do this for me or treat me with respect because
I think as long as you're giving in a sense of you're seeing all else as yourself and realizing that we're all one and that,
And you can see yourself in that person. You can see that possibility.
you were in that situation, I mean, it really is about, loving.
You have to realize you don't have to give money. You don't have to give food. You don't have to give anything other than yourself and your love. So, just say, I'll pray for you. I love you. I wish you a better day.
And sometimes
Or
that's
I wish you a great day.
yeah.
Or if
And
you know where they're camping out, just go check on them.
but it is all that we're talking about based on the fact that we live in a capitalistic society.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have capitalism. Let's say we live in a resource-based economy where everybody contributes marginally, a small percentage of your day, where you go do something that maybe you don't want to do, like clean the sewer out or whatever. But everybody contributes a small amount of their time per day. And then everything else, and I don't know how that works ultimately because, there's something to be said for in capitalism that you're inspired to create because you want to, get money. So your creative is pushed. Now, in a resource-based economy, will we be inspired to create or will we become kind of lazy?
Here's the thing: is we are all inventors or creators. We like to sketch. We like to draw. We like to build, and it's always about improvement. Nobody likes status quo. Status quo is boring. Nobody likes to be bored. They want excitement, so they want to improve on something or tear something down and rebuild it just for fun, just to see if they can make it better or improve their stuff. So it doesn't matter what type of society we're in, we're always going to push to better ourselves and our community because
that's what we're about.
The majority of us will, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we
You
have to
said
have
there are
that.
more good people than bad.
Right, you're not that 10%.
well, the majority of people on this planet are
and the
of service
reason
to others.
and the
I mean,
reason-
that's just
And the reason we're having this conversation is, like you said, where do we want to be in, when all this is said and done?
Well, we need to have an idea of what we want in the future, because if we can't envision what we want in the future, then
We're not going to go towards it.
We're not going to head towards it. Exactly. We're going to be off a different direction. And I am not about to be happy or content with the skeletal model of the society that we've built up. It's been corrupt from the beginning, and if you use that damn same skeletal structure, it's just as easy to
visualize what it would be like if it were different, and work towards that in your own sphere. I mean, we can't affect it on a world unless people are doing it individually within their own communities. That's the best we can do as individuals.
Creating why we can't figure it out, because we can't comprehend what that looks like when you know how your neighbors, some of them are acting out and doing some crazy things, or people doing crazy murders going on. It's hard for us to envision.
Yes, but I know the elements that I would like to see in a world like that, and those elements that I can visualize and act upon, then I visualize and I act upon them. I mean, you can't visualize the whole thing. We don't have that capacity, but we can visualize those elements that we would like to see in that new place, and we can act upon those.
To be honest, the community-based societies, I think, are probably the most beautiful idea possible.
Yeah.
It's the only way that can actually get out of this. Why? Because every single economic system that is developed always developed in the fringes where the predominant economic system could not cover completely. For example, in imperialism, you had in the corners of the kings to where they couldn't control all of the things outside of their kingdom. In those little pockets of, let's say, freedom that were outside of the control of some kind of king or rulership in the feudal times, in those areas is where we saw the beginnings of what today we call capitalism. That was more than 500 years ago. The Kondiev cycles show that. And so we have been at the end of the Kondiev cycle of capitalism now for almost 80 years. I mean, that's the reason why communism started up, because it had to try and find something else to replace it. But that is worse. Humanity doesn't accept that, or we want to reject it at its core. But it's been slowly trying to put itself in, because nobody can figure out a better way to do things, and it has to be outside of the control of the system. Now, considering that the New World Order basically controls the majority of the planet, it's hard to visualize what's going to develop outside of the control of the system unless we create small communities that are themselves outside of the control of the system.
Exactly. You have to work in your community, get to know your neighbors, make a game plan with those that you're closest to. And as I said before, focus on the elements we can affect and work towards those ends. We can't be expected as individuals to fix absolutely every little thing, but we know what we need to fix within ourselves, and we know what our neighbors need if we have a relationship with them. So work toward those positive ends, and it eventually carries you into more and more and more, and it opens up in front of you.
We started that move. I bought some eggs, and I ended up contacting the owner, the farmer, and come to find that he sells meat and this and that. And we had a long conversation. He was on par with a lot of things. So
butterfly wings. Yeah, it starts with something small.
Right. So we're going to meet up with him. We're going to start buying things from him directly.
There you go.
If you look at the
the farmer loves it because you're going to pay him better than what the market's paying, and you're going to love it because you're paying less than what the supermarket's
right.
And they're going to tell all their friends and bring him some business.
Because he was pissed that the stores were jacking up the price of his food, and they're not buying it, and it's quality food. I mean, things that are free range, pasture raised.
But they jack up the price just so that people won't buy it, because they're trying to mold what people will consume.
They're trying to create scarcity because a lot of it doesn't even get butchered.
Before we get off on a dark tangent, I do want to mention Michael Tellinger. He's been working with a group of people for a very long time, at least 10 years now. And they are working on this society, this community-based society.
Right.
And so if you haven't heard of Michael Tellinger, just look him up. and it only takes a couple videos. He mentions it in everything he talks about.
Ubuntu.
That'll help us with a better picture of
Yeah.
the world.
I like
You
Michael
know.
Tellinger.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the society, you have to, the problem with this planet is that, and they do this on every planet that they take over, you know. I think it's, even if you look at the, Sumerian texts and all of this stuff, these societies are built on a certain system that enables slavery, enables brainwashing, enables mind control, enables this slave mentality, and it's just they do it. It's a universal thing, It's
Been
not.
around for a long time.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's going to take time for us to undo all that damage because everybody is in such a mindset. They've been trained in this mindset from the time that you're an infant, and it's just passed on, passed on, passed on. And they're so efficient at doing this. They've been doing it for so long that they know how to do it perfectly.
And if you speak out against it and say, I don't like it.
Right. And we are not the first. We are not the first planet that has stood up to these guys. I mean, it's possible, and I think that we're going to do it. But it's just getting everybody awake. That's really where we're having the problem. It's getting everybody awake.
And it's great that there's small groups of us all over the place that think alike.
Yeah.
But hopefully with the new CNN owner or whatever he is, maybe they'll get back to investigative journalists.
Well, the thing is,
maybe they'll start.
Oh, they've already started. Did you see the interview that was done with this? Now I can't remember who she is, but she already went up against the mask mandates and debunked a lot of stuff on
CNN.
Yes.
And a letter.
No, it was an interview. She looks Chinese, but she's American.
Okay, I saw that.
Yes,
okay.
Listen to what she says.
Yeah, Well,
that's just it, because the media is falling away. People have no choice but to start listening to crazy nuts like us. Or other.
I hope so, because we're a hell of a lot smarter than what they're putting on mainstream.
Right, but I mean, but people are craving to know what's going on. They're not. More and more people recognizing they're not getting it from media. So now they go on social media. Of course, now that's why they're trying to censor us on every step we take, because they know that we're the new news.
Well, I mean, when you keep people divided through religion, and you keep people divided through race, and you keep people divided through politics, and you keep people divided. I mean, they've got a.
When you create 89 genders that don't exist,
Yeah.
Where do I belong in the spectrum of genders?
Focus over here on the 9 genders, and don't worry about the the people abusing little children over here. That's
yeah.
I mean,
Focus on that, not on this.
Yeah, that's what they do. It's that distraction tactic, and I have just seen humans are very they have been trained to watch.
Yeah, squirrel.
Yeah. They just are trained to, the media said this, so therefore it is, and I don't even know how you break somebody out of that cycle. It's almost, there is a bit of mind control going on. And I wouldn't even put it past these dark forces that have, actual.
Well, that's why it's all called programming.
Yeah, well, it's programming, and I think they are actually using some
I'm still floored that people pay taxes on their labor. That just throws.
I'm talking about the television programs. It's all programming. The reason why everybody is been mind controlled or brainwashed is because of the programming that each society ends up going through. One of the things that allowed me to break it is because I was able to see the programming in 2 different cultures, and I saw how each one was being programmed and led in a certain way to where they wanted that population to go. And so at one point I was like, well, which one of them is true? And so I started debating everything and found my own ways of seeing things that didn't necessarily mesh with any one of those 2 programs, and eventually I just got into my own reality, which is in itself my own
Still
programming.
based
And
on-
my
I've got a
kids,
multicultural family, and sometimes I look at the programming in them and think, wow, it also goes through their ethnic groups and their communal groups. It's
oh, but it's all culture. It's the ethnicity really is not as much to do with it as the culture that backs it up.
right.
The actions that they decide to take, the mentalities that they adopt. It's got nothing to do with their skin color or the region of the world. It
Right.
has
It's
to do
nothing
with the
unique. It's
mentality.
nothing unique to any one cultural group. But because
Exactly.
I've got three cultures in my family here, and I'm watching it go through all three of them in amazement. I'm just thinking, oh my God, the programming is deep.
Yeah, and many of them actually have some of the same programming because it is pervasive worldwide. I mean,
Well, some of them come from a socialist governed country too, so with a parliament. So it's hard sometimes to get them to. My ex-husband and my dad are Lebanese, and sometimes it's really hard to get them to understand what the Constitution really means. They get to be naturalized citizens here, but a lot of them don't really know what that Constitution stands up for.
because they don't resonate with it because they never really learned it. And to be honest with you,
Right,
there's
right.
a lot of Americans who don't even know what the Constitution
And they're
means.
too
It's
busy
why
now.
Yeah,
they just want to rip it up because
Well,
they don't understand it.
I will say though, and I know you guys have all seen this, that it's part of the programming, but I also do think there is some type of technological component to this because you could be talking to somebody and it's almost like they just won't hear you. Period.
A switch
Then
gets
you-
flipped. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you bring up the Constitution. The funny thing is, it was written in cursive. What is the one thing they stopped teaching in school?
Exactly.
Cursive.
And this is what I'm trying to get one of my grandsons to learn because he can't read cursive.
Yeah, and why?
To be
But that's what I
clear-
mean. They're always 10 steps ahead.
Mhm.
And so, you're dealing with this, trying to break programming. Also, I do believe, like I said, there's some type of technological component where, they're being controlled. And then there's the, factor where you've got institutionalized, lizations constantly bombarding these kids with, if they keep drilling it into their brains, it is a form of like mass hypnosis, where they start to believe the lie that they're being told. And so
And then they want year-round school because they want to continually bombard our children with their
Our
programming.
kids would come home and tell us things that I was just like, wow. And our kids are awake enough to where they
I had to call the
catch
principal
it,
on more than one occasion and ask,
yeah.
what does this
they're
have
all-
to do
they're
with
all in school
education?
now. They're all-
My son had a gun pulled out. A kid in high school, a kid pulled a pistol out of his locker and stuck it in my son's face.
Wow.
And I went down to school as soon as I found out and pulled him out and fought the school board, fought the principal, fought a couple of his teachers, and I stood firm. He's not going back to that school. If you're not going to go out there, they wouldn't go and search the kid's locker because it was a violation of his civil rights.
Oh,
187.
The kid stuck a loaded gun on my son's nose, and that wasn't a violation of his, and you're not going to protect him at the school? No, he's not coming back. And I went to fight with the state. I won.
wow.
I didn't have to go through any legal battles, but I got phone numbers and I became a literal Karen over the whole damn thing until they figured they just wanted to get rid of me. So they did what I wanted. And I went to his school every day until graduation, until this was 11th grade. I went down to the school every day before I went to work, got his homework, got his assignments, brought them home, made him do them at home, and took him back to school the next day when I picked up the next day's work.
We had the police call us because some kid came over here, stole one of the kids' toy guns, and it got circled in the school. And then our kid got called in the office, and the police called us along with the principal. I'm like, what does the police have to do with 11 years?
Yeah, right?
So we get up, we finally figure it out, and we made it clear that this was not welcomed in the school. Our kid did not deliver it. It was taken from us and brought in here or there. We're talking police calling on 11-year-olds. Like, why are you?
Everybody overreacts. Everybody's addicted to drama.
Oh my God.
Well, and they scared the crap out of the kids,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's for the best effect.
Oh,
Scare
really?
everybody.
Yeah. Well, they want to play fun for one.
If they're scared, they'll comply. And see, the greatest thing about the revolution that we're in, because the simplest activity that we can do is not comply.
Don't
Right.
be afraid. This
Yeah.
is all a big shit show.
It is.
Exactly. Just
Well, I mean,
keep
you gotta
living.
realize, first of all, when you talk about schools, first, they've never taught anything worth of value
Mhm.
unless you're in art or shop.
Right.
About it. Some of the maths are okay, but there's a lot better maths that you could be teaching. You need to learn to read, to write, to communicate, and there's never. How come there's not a communication class in school? There's never been. We don't know how to communicate with each other on any significant level.
About how to do.
No, it's sit down, shut up, and hear what I have to say. That's all it is.
Yeah, they know how to do life, how to go out and
Well,
start a bank account,
And it's programming you to sit down, don't stand up to authority, listen to what we say.
And we
I'm
taught our
the
kids.
master. You
We
don't-
taught our kids to
But the thing is,
authority, respectfully.
here's the retarded thing. You went through this programming. I went through this programming. Every adult in this nation went through the same bullshit school system. We all know we didn't learn a fucking thing. Why are we sending our goddamn children back? Because what? So they can learn the same nonsense that we wasted for 12 years?
Mhm.
Right, and then they
You want to
Or
be
16?
throw it off.
Well, there's a huge wave of people homeschooling their children now, and this is going to
Exactly.
cause problems for the school boards
COVID
because they're not
is
going to
the
get their
best thing about
funds.
But
Yeah.
they still give you the curriculum that they want you to follow while you're teaching your kids.
Right, but a smart parent will supplement that. I did that with my son, even though he was in public school, and the stuff he came out. He had one teacher that just thought he was brilliant because he always had these really intelligent arguments. So you might have to, by law, go by a certain curriculum, but at least with homeschooling, you can interject and correct,
Right.
which is what I did with my son. I would explain to him, this is what you're going to be tested on, and this is what you have to answer for the books. But here's the truth, and read this.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Parents have to ameliorate it.
shouldn't have
And
to
a
do
lot
that
of
in the
these
first
kids
place.
grow up super smart.
Yeah,
Well,
you
I
shouldn't
think-
have to do that in the first place.
No, but apparently we do right now.
And we have
And
for
any
a very long
dedicated
time.
parent will do it.
I mean, the reason that I have the education is because we did exactly that. I traveled a lot, and so we would get 3 weeks worth of homework, and I'd do it on the car ride down, on the 3-day car ride that we took to go from one town to another. And so I would take that with me, and I would do my homework. And in the meantime, I would learn what real life was about by following my dad around and
Mm-hmm.
business meetings and everything else. So it was sort of the twofold. And then I would
Farms are
get
good
back-
for that.
And then I would get back to school and I would get a B's, high B's or A's on my exams, and everybody would be frustrated because I wasn't there during the classes, but I, was able to answer the exam questions when they
Mhm.
weren't, because they weren't paying attention in class. They were too busy talking or passing notes or doing whatever it is that people do in that social structure, because school isn't about the education that they give you. It's the ability to live in a society, creating those social abilities to where you're not completely an outcast.
Yeah, they're socializing you.
Right. And it's about how much can you absorb and regurgitate, not
Mhm.
think for yourself.
Here, let's do the test. Fill out these dots.
Yeah.
And
And this is how
every child in those classes, out of all of them, at least half of them get halfway through that test. I did this myself because I was just so fed up with it, and you just start blacking out anything just to get through the damn thing.
Mhm.
And the shows I've been watching, there's this guy that goes around to different places and cultures and what have you, and just walks with people and checked out their culture. This guy has been going to the Amish farms.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching that, and I have a great admiration for the Amish people. Just not a religious guy. I don't think I can go that route.
It's the simplicity of their life.
Yeah,
They
I
don't
grew
make
up
it
near some
complicated.
hardcore Mennonites.
In. The guy was talking about. He said, "Yeah, we got the bug, but it was nothing more than the flu.
Yeah.
Just a bad flu. That's it."
Hold on, let's be careful with the vocabulary again.
Right, that's why. Yeah, I try to keep it bugged.
Oh,
The coof.
are they censoring you?
It's YouTube.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know.
But yeah, no, but the simplicity of their life
Yeah.
and how happy these people were with their simplicity. And some of them were Mennonites where they have some technology that they accept. Even then, there's still a simplicity.
Well,
And
there's also different levels of them too. For instance, the Mennonites I grew up near, the only electricity they had were for lights. Everything else was by hand. But the community my sister lives in, I have a half sister that's living in a Mennonite community up in Georgia, and they're a bit more modernized. So I guess it depends on where you go. But still, their
Yeah.
families are close. They keep the children close. I mean, everybody's happy. Everybody helps each other. I mean, this is something we need to learn from them.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
yeah,
I mean, do you know how much work you can get done when you're not online 24 hours a day?
right.
Do you know how much I get done in spite of being online?
Well, I mean,
That's what I want
we're making a lot of people up using the internet against them too. So I mean, it's not all bad,
No.
Well,
But-
it depends on what it is. For example, you have the largest library on the planet that's available for anyone to learn. All they have to do is look for it.
Yeah,
Now,
I love
there's
that
also-
old meme. Yeah.
There's also a bunch of TikTok, videos that are 5 seconds long that will feed whatever pleasure
Mhm.
centers you want to feed, and you can focus on that all fucking day and not learn a damn thing either.
Yep.
Okay, so it all depends on. I mean, it's all there. It just depends on what you are willing to focus on. Now, the problem is that most people don't see the value in learning all the different things they need to learn. They just see the immediate value in, I was at the beach and I saw these people making a TikTok video in front of the beach. It's like, look at the sunset. What the hell? They were practicing. They had their back to the beach because that had to be on the camera, right? And they were practicing their little dance moves and everything else because they had to get that 15-second video right.
We
And that's
sit on the
what
beach and make fun of them.
Yeah, I was actually jogging on the beach, so I was just running by them, going, "What the fuck are they doing?"
I think one of the biggest brainwashing
Go
things
photobomb them.
is that you're told we went first grade through 12th grade. Oh well, I've done my schooling. I'm ready to take on the world, and I never have to go back to school again.
That's
The
biggest problem.
the whole system's designed to mess with your mind. I mean, just mess with your mind, because every day of your life is a learning experience. You either learn from your own actions or you learn from the actions of others.
Right. Observation or participation.
If we could
We have a
erase
choice.
that mentality from people and install one where learning is something to be praised,
Yeah, but we're
something
back
that-
to the evolution of the soul. Not everybody is at the point where they can grasp these ideas. And there's going to always be in any planet's population a group of people that cannot grasp these ideas by the time ascension and the split comes.
But do I have to like it?
No, you don't have to like it, but you can learn to recognize those who are receptive to it and network with them, like what we're doing now. I mean, we reach people through YouTube. Michael said it last week, when he looked at how many people watched the video after we were off the air, it surprised him.
Well, everybody's on a different level. Yeah. And it's not really our job to I mean, I
We're
guess,
just here to disseminate it. We can't force anybody to do
right.
it.
Yep. They're on their level and they'll keep moving up from that point on. But,
Right.
You just got to
So
plant the
So we're
seed.
gardeners now. We're just planting seeds. And
Yeah.
that's
Planting
it.
Well,
seed.
that's what you
Yes,
have to do.
that's what you're here for,
Keep
yeah.
planting them.
yeah. I mean, we're all on that. Everybody's on their own personal path.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to accept that, they're at this stage right now, and you were maybe at that stage one time too, and somebody was probably like, oh, just,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean, I have an example. I have this roadway down here. They made it a single lane, and then at the very end, it splits off for three cars. It originally was a left turn lane, and it had an arrow. Then the street people they changed it. They took the arrow off, and they made it optional, left or go straight.
Oh, no.
It was put way back. So I went ahead and I've been taking that lane. No one else would do it. And then when I would go, people would merge over in the middle of the intersection and honk at me. And they get all pissy at me. And I'm like, whatever. So finally, the street developers put up the sign closer. Now I'm watching people hesitantly go in that lane.
That is a metaphor for this whole planet.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, they're like, well, wait.
See, you put that energy in motion and something came along and followed suit.
Well, that also illuminates another problem is too many people think literally. Everything is literal. What is, which is why they need signs. If the sign says yield, well, then they're going to come to a complete stop, look both ways 10
You
times.
don't drive much in Florida, do you?
Or in
But
Texas.
if there wasn't a yield sign, then then they would just be natural. But if you tell them, certain information, that's literal. Nothing can be outside of that box.
Well, right.
And
I remember what's
they
right
go through their
on
lives in boxes.
Now imagine a whole big city like Broward County or Dade County where Miami is. I'm just south of Fort Lauderdale, where you have got a Haitian influx. So you've got the island mentality when it comes to driving. And then you've got the Cuban population down in Miami who work up here, or those that live here and work down there. And then you've got the Americans. And then you get on the turnpike. And you find them all over the place, and they're not where they're supposed to be. You get the Haitians who drive 40 miles an hour in the far left lane.
Well, like in South America,
it's like,
lines are optional. Those lines don't really mean anything.
Yeah,
They're
and
just
the signs are
decoration.
only suggestions. They're
Well,
not
in
rules.
Minnesota, the Somalians didn't come in. What they do is they say, here's a new car. Oh, here's a new cell phone. Use them together.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
They go get their test. The interpreter helps them through the test. Here's your license. Now go out and have a good time.
Oh, God.
All the time.
You
will see a lot of people that are foreigners here, and they're on their phones, and I'm just like,
But you have some of them who are born here who adapted, and they're pissed at them too.
Yeah, they're getting paid because they've been taught to follow the rules.
Right. I have some good friends that are Somalian, and they're like,
down at your phone, and you're driving a 2-ton vehicle. Come on, stop.
They're
The
just
first thing they ask you
suggestions.
down
Come
here if
on,
they
guys.
stop
What's
you
the
is if
worst
you've
that
been
can
on your
happen?
phone.
But you don't blame the people. It was part of the game. They wanted to create that irritation in society.
Yes,
No problem with anybody coming to the country and they come in the right way or they're offered it. I have no problem with it because
we're
all immigrants.
When you go to another country, they expect you to understand you're in another country. But
Right,
when people come here, they want us to understand they're from someplace else.
Yeah.
I had the funniest experience in Scotland. My friend's daughter used to work in the Edinburgh Castle. So she knew all the little passageways that the tourists don't get taken on. So we took a tour with the big group one day. And we would stay at the end of the line and duck through all these little passages and come out ahead of the group. And it was the most interesting thing because I got to see the dungeons. But there was a lady ahead of us in line. And in the museum part of it, where they have all the costumes, the uniforms from past wars, and their history goes back much further. And each display has, paperwork to explain, and the tour guide is explaining when this war was and what they fought for, and yada, yada, yada. And you go through this whole war museum. And the lady in front of me was from Texas, and all she did was complain that they didn't have anything from the American Civil War there. Nothing from World War I and World War II.
Wow.
And Darlene and I are following behind her. Obviously, she's not been outside of the States this often. And here we are in Scotland, and she's bitching because there's nothing American in the Castle Edinburgh. So we waited till we got to the end of the tour, and I tapped her on the shoulder, and she turned around, and I said, "Because you're not in America," and ran. And she just stood there like she didn't get it. It just went over her head. It's like, wow, these people. The first time I used to see it when I lived in the Virgin Islands, because down there you have a lot of mixed marriages. And I would have people that would come from the Bible Belt here and look at me in my business and say, "Did you see that? He's black and she's white." you know, these people
Oh.
have no exposure whatsoever, and we're expecting them to get a grasp on what's happening in the world today.
Right.
They
Right.
can't get a grasp on the things that are happening before their very eyes.
And you're too focused on the color of somebody's meat suit.
Well, the funny thing is, I have freckles. That's melanin, and when I go in the sun, my skin actually turns. I wonder what that makes me.
Well, my
Can't say that
grandchildren,
word.
my grandchildren are very mixed. They have Taino for one, which is now an extinct race
I've never
because of their mother.
What?
They're from Puerto Rico, and her mother is half black, and my son is half Lebanese. And one of these children, he gets out in the sun, and he's out there 5 minutes, and he turns dark, and we call him a little Puerto Rican because he gets so dark. But the other one is like me; he glows in the dark.
Well, you guys gotta listen to Russell Peters. Russell Peters says the two biggest population is Asians and what do you say? Asians and Indian. He said, and so he's a commie. He says, so eventually we're gonna have they're gonna all be humping, and we're gonna have all these different types of mixtures of Asian and Indian.
Yeah.
So he says, so why don't you just do yourself a favor and come hump a Indian comedian? Let's just,
no.
Well, see, the thing is, that shows his ignorance because Indians are Asians.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
Anyway, people need to get a broader scope. We can't expect people who can't grasp what customs are in
at the
another
same time,
country.
it's not necessarily our job to actually educate everybody.
Exactly. But it's fun to watch them.
It falls back on we're all one.
Well,
exactly.
I mean,
we're all one.
the point of the show is to give information that you will never see on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
This is true.
And, perspective. I love, the more I talk about your show, the more I realize everything is about perspective.
Which is why that's the title.
It's a great title.
We all have different ways of seeing things, and we have to find a way to get along. However, even in family, we have difficulties, and there's always spacing that happens. And yet, some of the ways that we can get along is just getting away from people and allowing them to do whatever it is that they do, and we go on and do what it is that we need to do.
Give them space and a wide berth.
Let them be, and you do you. And that's the whole purpose of.
There's a saying in Arabic, I think it's Armenian Arabic, God keep them happy and far away from me.
Usually that's how it ends up working, and it's bizarre how we are that way. But that's one of the easiest ways to actually get along is by just giving them a wide berth. However, as a society and as a growing global community, that space has become reduced, which is why we see in the big cities why there's so much chaos, because there is no space between them. You have to deal with somebody else's eccentricities because they're in your face all day long. There are people who can't stand strong smells. Well, try and get into a taxi in New York and tell me you're not going to feel a strong smell.
Yeah, right?
You just
downtown Miami.
Well, that's a whole different load of smells.
Yeah.
But getting along in society means that you have to be able to deal with that in some way, shape, or form. And it starts with not changing the others. You change what you can about yourself, but you have your focuses and foundations that you're not going to get very much away from. You just try and make sure those resonances aren't too chaotic or out there.
Well, just remember what they said in the Q drops. You can't tell them. You have to show them.
Mm-hmm. And usually we try and be an example and show other people how to live and hope they'll do that. But that doesn't always work. And in the end,
for example, if you use me as an example, well, I'm full of flaws and sins and serious fucking mental problems. I would never recommend anyone use me as a goddamn example. Um,
Oh,
but at the
But
same
we love you anyway.
but at the same time, we all have another example that we have to use, which is Jesus Christ. He gave us the ultimate example. Now, can we live that way? No, because he's the only one who was perfect. But we
Well, he's
tried.
another one that didn't tell us what to do. He showed and led by example.
Exactly. And those that didn't accept his word, what did he do? He didn't grab him by the collar and said, "You're gonna." No, he said, "Turn your back, wipe your feet, and continue on your way."
And he healed them anyway.
But he did turn some tables though when he
Yep.
started doing the money system.
Well, hold on. The thing, yeah, but the thing that you got to understand is where were those tables, and what was he so angered by? And that was because they were trying to invade the temple with the other mammon, the other kind of god. Okay, and that's like somebody spitting in your father's face.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
not
he's
gonna,
already told us he's going to be angry when he comes back because he's not coming in love. He's bringing a sword.
yeah, he showed us how to live the first time. The next time
Yeah.
he's coming in judgment because he
Yep.
already showed us how to live, and we got to live that way because or else.
And
And
our
I'm
viewpoint is that he's a higher dimensional being that came here to teach that we are the creator.
he is the highest dimensional being. It is through him that this universe was created, and we are him seeing the milieu of the quantum probabilities. Okay, whenever you look at the quantum universe that God created, there's so many probabilities and so much randomness that it can become kind of chaotic. And that's the benefit of having our very limited perception, our two eyes and two ears and one mouth with very limited senses. We only see, like you said, 1% of the light spectrum. Where's the rest of it? Where's that information? We don't need it because what we need is to be able to focus on this reality and enjoy and be grateful for the reality that we have. Learn the lessons that we need to learn how to deal with the difficulties that are placed in front of us because they were placed in front of us for a reason. We go through those things specifically to learn specific lessons. That's and we all have a bunch of lessons that we're supposed to learn in this lifetime. We've got things that we're supposed to achieve in this lifetime. It's the reason why we were created. It's the reason why we were born. And so the Japanese have a high scale of saying that one of the greatest objectives is finding your personal destiny. And someone who's enlightened is whenever they found their destiny and they're walking the path towards it. Because you found out who you are, you found out what your blue level is, and you're working towards it. And that is part of the co-creator. Because yes, we have the creative ability. We have the ability to visualize something in the future and visualize the steps that we need to get to that in the future.
Well, focus on the positive and focus on what you can affect and go that way.
Exactly. And that
And
makes
be
us
good
good.
to one another.
One thing to remember is that we were all born into this horribly corrupt system that is thousands of years old. And this is the only time in history where the entire world is connected by the internet.
The web.
Prior to, we didn't, our connection to the Akashic records was extremely, I think it was limited due to all the radio waves.
Well, that's now we actually had better communication. That's one of the things that they're finding out. The soul, the more electronic communications that we've developed over time, and there was a study that was done back in 1890, the people's sensory abilities before the telegraph, for example. Just the fact they had electricity going through the air automatically affected the way that people thought and the things that they were able to perceive. And so, yes, before, I guarantee you, we were able to tap into that Akashic record a lot more easily than we can today. There's a lot of interference, and that's specifically why they're creating all that web of noise so that we can't get through it.
Then there was the Carrington event that happened in 1859. It took out the telegraph.
Which was a solar flare, which you
mentioned.
Yep.
I had to throw that in there.
CME. Well, we're way overdue for the next Carrington event. So yeah, you're not
and we
wrong
also
in this possibility.
The other thing in historical records at that exact same time was the last World's Fair.
Yeah.
People don't remember that back in the day, every I think it was once a decade, they would have a World's Fair.
Mhm.
And it would be at select cities in the United States, kind of like we have the Olympics. And all the greatest scientists and medical and whatever, every field would come and show the world what they've created, what they've discovered, and whatnot. And at 1891 was the last one,
I
and
think
that
we
was the
have.
time
I
that
think
the
we had them all the
cabal.
way up to the 70s, didn't we?
Yep,
'Cause there's
we
one
did.
in
We
New
did.
York.
Yep, exactly.
There was a World's Fair in New York in
Yes,
1970.
there was. In fact, if you look at the movie Men in Black,
Yeah,
that
they
was
showed it
actually
there
filmed.
at the Space Dome.
Exactly, that was a World's Fair, and Disneyland in California was also at one point a World's Fair,
Hmm.
and it was sort of they used that same venue and transformed it eventually into the person disappearing enterprise that it is now. But
Yeah, I don't think you're talking about the same type of World's Fair I'm talking about. So, in 1891, they, what did they have?
Wasn't there the
70 or 80,000 acres convert, they had this 70 or 80,000 acres, and they built, it took them 2 or 3 years to build it, but they built these megalithic buildings
Hmm.
that 3 or 4 football size fields you could put in these buildings.
There is
And they built
a movie done in the 1920s where they used them as a backdrop, and I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. It's a
I
silent.
went in the year 2000 in Germany. There was a World's Fair in Germany in the year 2000. I remember I was there, and
Okay,
yes,
yeah, but it was
those
a
things were
pathetic
huge.
little. It was, you can
Yeah,
label it a World's Fair, but you know what? 5 scientists from around the world meet in a cubicle, and they talk about their ideas. That's not the World's Fair I'm talking about.
no, the
That's
one
like
that I went
Comic
to actually.
Con.
Well, yeah,
Comic Con. Comparing the World's Fair to Comic Con. Comic Con bigger than the World's Fair of today. I'm talking about 1891. They created a city. Chicago held one, and it looked like a foreign country when they were done. And after 1891, they demolished all these buildings, and then it was never built up like that again. You're right; they had World's Fair, but it was minuscule
well,
in
it became too
comparison.
expensive to do all that stuff, and they didn't have the return because many of
Are
those
you
things don't.
kidding? You're kidding, right?
Well, for
They didn't get the
example,
return. I mean, the World's Fair means the entire world gets together, and then it's a big event. It's a huge event.
yes,
It's
but
it's not
I'm
some
talking
little
about the
thing.
yeah, and I understand the intellectual aspect of them, and that's always has beneficial. The problem is the monetary return on that. For example, the amount of investment that they made in order to build those buildings and everything else. Did they get that back in ticket sales or people that visited them and all that kind of stuff? That's what usually tends to make these things smaller events because people don't have the money to toss around or they don't want to risk the money to toss around because if they don't see enough of a return for their investment, because that's the way it's been for a while now, unfortunately.
What are you alluding at, Carl? That stopped it. You're apparently going somewhere with that.
Right. So
I
this,
agree with Mike on that. I mean,
and I never saw the records, the financial records of any of these World's Fairs. So I can't say that was the
no,
cause.
it was
Cause
was it
cause
the
that I'm
elite?
referring to.
But wasn't only the elites were able to go to these things?
Well, they were
No,
the only ones that were able to travel so
they
far.
were free, which is why I don't know what he's talking about. No, go to the World's Fair. It was free. There was no ticket that you bought to go to the World's Fair. They were free. They were free
Yeah,
for
but
the
you had to
public.
physically get there, and back then people couldn't travel to
Right.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
places
There
where
was a
you.
lot of money in the travels, and because you had to travel by boat and hot air balloon and wagon and train and everything else.
And most people
Uh,
didn't have the 3 weeks in order to make the trip to get
but
to the World's Fair.
Michael, the world back then is not what we're told about in history books, and it's not like it is today. It wasn't all horse and wagons. They had electric cars and electric scooters and a lot of electric vehicles. And
Trains.
electric trains, and I don't believe. Anyway, so the point is after 1891 is when the deep state got their strongest foothold into the United States, and they shut it all down, and they erased that history, and
They
erased
co-opted Tesla, and it all went the other direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these
Imagine.
buildings with the domes and the Oculuses in them and the lightning rods,
They
I
had
think
their own
those
power
those collected electricity.
There's this building in New York that's 50 miles away from New York City that's on an island, a structure that's like 7 stories high that they still can't figure out who built. They keep lying and saying it was structurally made by. They keep coming up with these stories of being an ammunition building or whatever, but it looks like a castle.
Hmm.
And what I'm getting at is, you're right, Carl. There's so much history that is being erased on purpose.
Yeah.
Because there were directions that society was going that they didn't want, because the deep state had an agenda and that wasn't working for them. So they wipe out history. There's cities built on top of cities, Portland and all that,
Well, I
just
mean,
wiped
look at
out.
the Alexandra, library.
Well, the Alexandria Library wipe. I mean, whenever history is going in a direction that is broadening consciousness, they shut it down.
Yeah.
And I know what you're getting out on this World's Fair. That was a way to get everyone to share in new ideals and what have you, an expansion.
Broaden their horizons and expose them to other realities.
Right.
Exactly.
They can't have you being exposed to new realities.
Right.
No.
Oh no, especially that woman in Scotland.
Now then you had the Venus Project.
God.
You had the Venus Project in 1960 by Jacques, what's his name? I forgot his name, but
I remember that
Valley?
project.
So,
not Jacques Cousteau. Jacques, I forgot his full name, but he created the Venus Project, which was similar to it was a resource-based economy.
Yeah, I love the Venus Project. I don't know how tenable it is, but some of the images that he had of the cities that were possible were impressive, and I was interested in it for a very long time, just like I was with Ubuntu from Michael Tellinger. They're very novel ideas that I believe will work on small community basis. You can't necessarily expand that system on a global scale. Not yet. I haven't been able to see anything, and I know that Tellinger's been trying to do it with Ubuntu, and he hasn't been able to. I know the Venus Project, like you said, has been around since the 60s, but why hasn't it been implemented? There are certain things about them that don't scale, evidently. But what we need to do is focus on the small communities. You can't worry about making it scale. Make it work first for your community in your neighborhood to where you can actually live outside the system and thrive.
Right, because like they said, Tesla came along, and then J.P. Morgan shut him down because they got the copper lines, and they had a direction that they wanted to go. I mean,
they wanted to charge you for electricity. They wanted to make us slaves to their system. They didn't want free energy.
Right.
And then they killed off all the ones they needed to get rid of on the Titanic.
Yep, that was for the Federal Reserve Bank. The ones the richest men that were opposed to it, well, they got free tickets on a ship that was programmed to sink, and they had explosives. I mean, I'm not even sure that it fucking hit an iceberg that big, or it would be capable of doing that. So that's just the excuse, because nobody got any news back then. So, oops, this thing, why did it go down? Oh, it hit this big ass iceberg. Oh, in the middle of the Arctic. Yeah, I believe.
And all those people on it, those important people on it.
Yeah.
And he only had 8 light bulbs.
to make
Right.
sure.
And it was really the Olympia.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's also reports that there was a ship on the horizon watching it
Yes.
sink.
Yes.
Right.
And they
helping
didn't do
the
any
rescue.
rescue.
A military ship. Oh, did they have torpedoes back then? Did it have 5 hulls that you had to rupture? Not just
Well,
one.
the Olympia already had a compromised hull. All they had to do was hit her in that spot.
That's almost as bad as finding thermite, on the ground around a particular buildings.
Yeah.
Well, no, because whenever steel melts, it melts in a perfect 45-degree angle.
And
know
nice and
that.
smooth too, isn't it?
Exactly.
And in less than an hour and a half from jet fuel that burns at the highest temperature rate, 1300?
Oh, but
Yeah.
wait, but
And
two,
what was it? Jet
but
fuel
two
burns at
jets,
800
but
or something like that.
two jets of
And
fuel burned for weeks.
And you know,
don't forget,
all
no,
those
don't,
experts that said this could not possibly happen. This building is, impervious to this.
And
A tin can flew into it, and
Yeah.
no, don't
Boom.
forget,
white boxes all melted.
a few papers from those two buildings flew into a bunch of open windows in another building,
Yeah.
and it collapsed. I mean,
Well, see, the whole reason that those buildings collapsed is because of the papers that were stored in them, including
right.
7.
And the
Right.
gold under them.
Yeah.
And never mind Barry. What was his name? Barry.
Who's his face?
Yeah, the brother that was a bit. He was a building inspector. He was in Building 7 coming down. He heard all the explosives, and
Mm-hmm.
he was telling everybody what he heard. And all of a sudden, he died of a heart attack.
Yeah, CIA has a heart attack gun.
Yeah, so did one of the witnesses who saw that it was not a plane that hit the Pentagon. He's gone now too.
Yeah.
well, at least his video's still out. It's I got it downloaded.
I have a
So,
friend that worked on, well, his wife to be at the time worked on the 103rd floor of, I think it was Tower 1. And he had gone to New York and convinced her to come back to Florida with him and marry him. And she just did it on a lark. She just said it felt right. So she didn't go into work. She quit on the spot. And what was it?
Wow.
That was over the weekend and then Tuesday. She
Wow.
would have died.
Yeah. Talk
She would
about
have been on the top floor.
Wow.
But you know what's interesting? This is the very thing, the brainwash that took place that I was amazed at. Because that very day, I told my boss that does not make sense, and I was unpatriotic.
He did. I
Yeah,
remember.
and Trump did the same thing. As soon as they interviewed him, he said that can't happen.
oh, I
Those
got yelled
buildings,
at.
those buildings were made to withstand that because
Yes.
a couple of years earlier there was a 737 that had hit a building.
Yeah.
So whenever they were building those, they already had the counterweights on top to make sure that it would be able to withstand that sort of
There
thing.
is a very interesting article written by a guy that in the group I used to belong to. His name is Joe Quinn. And his article, I think, made the headlines on a lot of internet places. But if you haven't seen it, it's called There Was No Plane at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he laid out he's even got the video that they said was missing. He got a copy of it, and it's on the article, and you can
But
see
see,
it's not
but-
an airplane, it's a
Yeah,
Yeah,
missile.
but again, what we need to understand is what they used the fear that the entire planet was under
Mhm.
to implement. They wiped out 4 of our human rights. Basically, were wiped out through
The
the Patriot
Patriot
Act the very
Act
next
was
day.
written, I think, a year or
Beforehand.
2 before that happened.
Yep, they were
Well,
just
I mean-
waiting for a
I mean,
situation to
besides-
implement.
They created the
Besides all
situation to
that,
put
I
in
mean-
the Patriot Act.
Well, I mean, that's what they're doing with the bug right now.
Uh-huh.
Exactly, the
It-
Great Reset.
You know,
If you can shut down all the small businesses, concentrate all the power into the big ones, to where you won't be able to get a job unless you do exactly what they
well,
want. You
and
won't be
when
able to
you
buy
take
anything else.
away rights, when they use fear to control in order to get everybody to comply, and then
And then people
all of a
believe
sudden-
mandate is actually a law. They actually believe that. No
Yeah,
legislation.
yeah.
Well, well, the mandates are coming down. But what also happens is that people they don't necessarily want to think because life is too complicated, and so they will accept things that are tossed in front of them, and they get into the fear, and then they become extremely controllable. And what they do is they make you fear someone else, because if you can take away somebody else's rights because they don't deserve it, because they need to be shut down, because their rights can be taken away.
Well,
The second
not
that you
even-
take away somebody else's rights, you are taking away your own.
Mm-hmm.
Not even to that point. I mean, just for me, when it happened, I just joined the U.S. Navy. Got out of my room, went to the common room. And they had a big 55-inch screen TV there, and they were playing it. I walked in and I watched the plane hit the building. Asked them what movie they're watching. Like, oh, it's live. I'm like, no, y'all are watching a movie. And everybody got upset at me. How dare you? No, it's not. It's real. It's really happening. I'm like, first of all, no, you're watching a bunch of bullshit. That didn't happen. And to try to convince them that they're watching a staged event,
Mm-hmm.
they all turned and attacked me for being unpatriot. How could I ever suggest that they're watching something fake?
Oh
The
yeah, well,
same-
how about the BBC was talking about Building 7 collapsing when they still had it on, their live
It's still
camera.
standing in the background.
And the
Yeah,
guy,
and the moon landing. I believe we went to the moon, but they didn't show us the real footage. They showed us what they shot in the desert.
and then
Exactly.
the guy in the second plane, when you seen the second plane hit, the guy that was in the helicopter was a studio live software
Mm,
that he had, and it bounced. So he made the plane bounce and come back. He made a mistake when he was doing his thing.
yeah.
Well, the first plane, the infamous one that everybody that's on every TV, the wing disappears behind the
Right.
building.
And
as
what
it
movie
goes
came
into
out?
it.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you think that's real? You've never.
Right. And Jurassic Park came out, and they were just bragging about their first movie with CGI, as incredible as it was, and then that happened. It's
I'm
like,
just
come on.
like, that's like taking a tin can or
Yeah, well, see, the thing is that it was Project Bluebeam and it was a hologram for people
right.
to see it. Why? Because
No,
it was all
There
programmed.
was in reality, no one saw a plane.
There was no
No.
plane.
In real life, no one saw a plane, a first plane or a second plane.
No.
I'll be right back. I have a cat fight. To
I've
break
got
up.
three videos from spectators on the ground that were released this year
that said they didn't
of,
see
of different images of the building just going boom, blowing up. No one saw a plane. There was not a plane in sight.
And the thing that people don't recognize is it was up for asbestos removal. And asbestos, what is that? A fire retardant wrapped around all the beams. So
Yep.
how is it possible that
Well, I
it
mean, they
burned? It's a
found-
fire
They
retardant.
found thermite. You can't get a building to burn,
No.
steel to
You
burn.
can get a house to burn, it's made out of wood, but you can't get steel to burn.
Not
Right.
like
And
that.
They had
No.
people going
It was
up on the
melting.
weekends with wires, and they heard drilling. And half the
I mean, that was a controlled
half the
demolition.
building
it looks
was
like a controlled
lost
demolition.
their renters because they were already evicting these people, and then the businesses.
Well, first of all, those buildings were already condemned. They had to be demolished anyway, but they ended up, like a couple of weeks beforehand, buying new insurance policies on both those buildings.
Buildings.
And
Exactly.
of course, there was
Big,
documents in
big,
that building. Documents in that building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you get? Like $3 trillion?
No, it was $7 billion for each one, and he had to take them to court and tell them that it was two separate events because they only wanted to give him the value for one event, which is $7 billion.
And there was
So
He ended up getting $13 billion for both towers.
But there was building 6, building 5. They had different types of nuclear type, mini nuclear type. There's so much more going on that people are even in our community are not aware of. It's a deeper dig.
Right. Well, I mean, but the main thing is the fact that people are so willing to trust blindly trust everything that they hear and see. They don't question anything. If an opinion comes across mainstream, it is backed by zero facts, but they believe it as gospel truth.
Well,
And
for
to
many
get people
years,
to
that mainstream was the only
Right.
thing we had. That for many years, that mainstream was all that we had, and so it was the only thing that we could actually use as far as
Newspapers,
information.
radio,
Nowadays,
TV,
we
cultural.
have exactly. Nowadays, we have so many different options for us to know what's going on. Why? Because we aren't stuck just to the mainstream media, and that's what they're hating right now because they can't control the other narratives. And that's what we're seeing with the Honk Honk going on because they can't control the narrative anymore because there are too many other options for information.
Yeah.
I believe it.
And it's funny about Honk. That on Facebook is considered a goes against the community standard.
That's
It's
brand
racist.
new.
The word.
That was that just came in because of what was going on there, and I also saw a
Geese
meme.
all around the world are upset and they feel manipulated because somebody else is using their call
Well,
sign.
Trudeau basically made the Canadian geese illegal. They can't honk anymore in town.
So I have been kind of not paying attention. Is Trudeau? Where is Trudeau right now? Is he?
Hiding in Quebec.
Is he?
Yeah.
They flashed
he's-
his address up on my Telegram channel, so it's there.
What happened was that once he found out the trucks were coming in, he got COVID because he
Oh,
actually
yeah, I saw that.
He didn't get COVID. He was exposed to someone at an event who had COVID. Even though he tested negative, he was in self isolation for 2 weeks
Oh,
just for safekeeping.
Just in case,
I'm
poor
sure.
baby.
Yeah.
God,
Exactly.
he's
Yeah,
gonna
he's
get
gonna
his.
Bullshit. Excuse me.
No, the
And he can't hear
Canadians.
any horns in Quebec, can he? Or can he hear it?
Well, he doesn't
Yeah.
have much protection because this is the time of year that all the Quebecois come to Hollywood, Florida.
No.
Well, there you go. So he's isolated there as
They're
well.
starting to show up. It's tourist season down here.
But you
Well,
know,
who's to say that Castro Jr. isn't hiding out in Miami himself?
but see, we talk about these puppets, and the puppets aren't really anything. It's
No.
really the people who are really the 1% that we don't see, know
Well,
their names.
Yeah, these guys are just, they're just
The real criminals that
front
are
line.
actually
They're
doing it.
just the face of the,
Well, once the kingpins are taken down, well, at least the kingpins that pertain to this planet, once they're taken down, these other people will get caught up bit by bit by bit.
Like the puppets behind Biden. Make
And we'll have
it
protection
Right
anyway.
now.
I mean, Hillary's strings have been cut. Imagine what she must be going through. I'm loving it.
So, have you guys heard anything on the Winter Olympics in China?
On the what?
The Winter Olympics in China.
Well, we just killed it in men's figure skating. Nathan Chen, he won us. I think the highest scoring one was 108 until Nathan Chen hit the ice, and it came out 118, I think 0.03. He blew him out of the water. And what's her name? Valikova, the Russian woman. I'm watching the figure skates on YouTube. She's blown it out of the water. It's just amazing. And the girl that defected, that gave up her U.S. citizenship to skate for China, fell
She
twice.
came in last place.
She fell twice, and then she broke down in tears. It was like another Tanya Harding moment.
oh boy.
She
Well,
hit the wall the second time.
The reason I ask is a report came out suggesting that the whole push for China to hold the Olympics there was this is their first opportunity to have their genetically engineered transhuman athletes
Possibly.
participate worldwide.
Possibly.
And
We don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds.
I just said it was a report. I didn't say it was verified or anything. It's just.
Well, it's funny too. On Netflix, they have this spy movie of this Russian gal who her daughter is an ice skater, and she was once one. And you go through this whole movie believing that she was once an ex-Russian spy, but now who's working with the U.S. And you think she's on our side, and she's caring about her daughter, and she's being attacked by her old ex-Russian comrade who trained her. And you get into the story, and at the very end, she turns out to be a Russian spy.
I have a question for Carl. Carl, were you the one that landed next to your bed? Or you were
Do I have a what?
you landed next to your bed, or something weird happened? Was it Carl that you were talking about?
Yeah. I fell through the ceiling. I went to bed at 9:00 one night, and my wife and the Dobermans were in the living room. And where we lived in a small cabin, and the nightstand was mounted to the wall, and it was a real small room. So it was a nightstand, queen size mattress, nightstand, and wall. And I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2". The ceiling was slanted, so I had to kneel, kind of crouch down when I went to get into bed. And anyway, so I went to bed at 9:00 that night under the covers, and I woke up with a sensation of falling.
Ooh.
And I opened my eyes, and I felt wind in my face, and then I saw the mattress and the nightstand coming at my face rapidly. So,
Oh wow! Just dropped it, huh?
so I threw my arms out in front of me, and I was just like, "What the hell?" And I was like, "There's no way I can stop myself." So I tried anyway, and I put my arms on each nightstand and mattress and flexed as hard as I could, but it wasn't enough to slow me down. My head got wedged in between the night bed and the mattress and the nightstand, scratched the crap out of the left side of my face.
So does this, do you think this was a negative group that dropped you off and didn't give a crap? Because kind of
I think well, at all my research, military is the only one that uses
messy.
poor technology.
Yeah, messy. Right. Yeah.
What's nest? I get in here.
Messy. Humans being messy.
Have you heard of Niara Isley?
Yeah.
Have you heard of Niara and her experiences?
Niara?
Yeah, Niara.
Niara.
It's Niara.
I know Eisenhower, the granddaughter to Eisenhower.
No, not Isley.
I think it's a. Yeah.
I always say her name, but because she has an interesting name.
Alara from 1 Foot and 5D.
No, not Alara. Niara. She's actually interviewed Niara though.
I like Alara.
Niara was taken, and she remembers being on the craft, being forced to lay down naked, and she smells the reptilian being. She's taken to a planet, and they're doing all kinds of. She's in a room where they're doing surgical, injecting her with all kinds of stuff, and she's having these horrible reactions. Not to mention the rape and everything else she went through. Then she was forced labor to work because she had some skills in the military, and they utilized her. She was working on, I think it was on Mars where she was at. Her story is really interesting.
That happened. She actually got.
It would definitely be.
I've had a lot of stuff happen to Carl. So, but yeah, to me that seems very messy. Like it would be humans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I told him when he told me what have happened to you, because that's what I get. That's the impression I get, that they're messy and they mess up.
Right. Well, for me, I was left with a perfect triangle right here.
Oh wow. Okay.
Chemically burned into my scalp, my skin, that lasted over a month.
Oh.
Month and a half. And so, for me, it was the chemical mind wipe was perfect, because the only thing I remember was waking up falling.
Yes,
and,
I have little bits and pieces I'll remember, but not
to this
much.
day. I haven't gone to a hypnotherapist and got a regression. I did ask if he could do if he could regress a chemical mind wipe, and he said he could. And I was like, well, that's good to know. And
yeah,
he's in California, I'm in here, and
I don't know. I'm a little nervous about doing that, because I'm like, do I want to remember? You know what I mean?
Remember, I'm living my life pretty happy right now. That kind of trauma may not be hard.
I'm a little iffy about having that done.
She wakes up with all kinds of shit. What the fuck? Yeah, I get up. Did you see that? I'm like, oh, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to see my pillow.
Well, I want to say it was about a month ago. I woke up with my pajama pants rolled
neatly.
And these are not pajama pants that you would roll, ever.
Well, Angel, she's trying to give you a compliment. She's saying you're very skilled at
You're not alone. I used to try and wake my husband up to see if he could see the same thing that I could see.
Yeah, no,
they never see what you see.
No, and he's just out, and he wakes up to the drop of a dime every other time.
So did my ex-husband. So I'm surprised I couldn't wake him up.
Mm-hmm.
At least I had a witness. My wife heard the crash in the bedroom and came in and saw me trying to throw myself out.
Get your head out.
Yeah, get my head out, and she's just like, what the fuck?
When did that happen? Can I ask you?
What's that?
When did this happen? Can I ask you?
Let's see. 2014.
Oh, it was quite a while ago. Okay.
Oh, it's a decade. Less than a decade. 8 years ago.
Yeah, that's quite a while ago.
All right.
It was not. It feels like yesterday. I still remember.
I was fully awake to this.
I think Mike's trying to close out.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just we've gone on all kinds of topics, and they're all interesting topics, but we're also at the 2-hour mark at this point. And like I mentioned in the beginning, my body's not the best right now. I'm going through a bunch of stuff, but every single one of those topics has been on the mark. I agree with all of you for all of those things.
Yeah, good show.
Absolutely. I mean, we even got into 9/11 and everything else. So
Well,
yeah,
we can continue next Tuesday.
we will definitely, because we
I've
all
got
share the same
notes.
ideas. Oh, you got notes.
Oh boy, do I have notes.
All right.
Well,
I
that
had a
will
good
work.
time talking to all of you and meeting all of you too. I mean,
Just
yeah.
don't disappear after we stop going
All
live.
right.
It's
Definitely.
called an
Well,
after party. Just stick around for the after party.
I'll
well,
stick around.
well, then again, we're. Oh yeah, Todd has a tendency to just jump off. You're right.
Click
So,
bye.
folks, thanks much for today. I appreciate everyone for showing up, and yeah, chat was a bit lively, but we got through it today. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it, and see you next Tuesday.
Artist 61, are you
Yes.
still around?
Mm.
All right.
All right.
I hope so.
Bye, everybody.